And welcome back to Catholic Drive Time. This is your host, Adrian Fonseca. It's so good to be on with you today. Praise be to God. It's always good to be here with you. Thank you for allowing me to share this time with you. Now, there is a crazy story I saw yesterday, and I was surprised to see Timcast News pick it up. So I was listening to Joshua Phillips with Epic Times talking about China, and then this morning I am looking through the news, and I see Timcast News also did a report on this. And so I'm going to base this report through the report here from Timcast News. China attempting to draw U.S. into 4 separate wars, and one with terrorist group. Very interesting. Very interesting. So here's the article. There remains widespread speculation as to whether other organizations or governments played a role in the facilitation of the operation, referring to Hamas's invasion of Israel. However, one possibility under consideration is that Hamas attack is part of a widespread effort by China to catastrophically weaken the United States by drawing America into multiple simultaneous conflicts. The Chinese Communist Party, forward being referred to as a CCP, officials are planning a major war against the U.S., according to investigative reporter and East Asia expert Joshua Phillips. As he stated in a recent video, the CCP is planning to draw the U.S. into 4 separate conflicts, and they believe at least one of these needs to be a terrorist organization. It is possible that Hamas could be that group. The most important piece connecting China to Hamas, Phillips says, is that in June of this year, and this I had no idea, I somehow completely missed this story, CCP leader Xi Jinping personally met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and announced the establishment of China-Palestine Strategic Partnership. China hosted the meeting as part of its push to expand its influence into the Middle East. The visit, during which Xi said China and Palestine were, quote, good friends and good partners, with Abbas's fifth to China. Following Hamas's recent attack against Israel, China called for a ceasefire in its foreign ministry. The fundamental way out of the conflict lies in implementing the 2-state solution, establishing an independent state of Palestine. The overall strategy behind splitting U.S. attention between multiple conflicts, as Philip explained, is to weaponize America's free and open society against it. Now, Xi's top advisor, Jin Canrong, gave a speech where he talks about the strategy of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, we're going to play this clip for you of him talking about this. Joshua Phillips and the Epic Times team translated into English, and so I'll play their translation of it from Chinese into English, and we'll play that right now.
Have other evil tactics, such as furthering the chaos of the world. But the problem with the United States is that it is truly diverse. Among Western countries, the U.S. enjoys the highest degree of democracy. Of course, diversity has one advantage. The people have freedom, such as freedom of speech. But it comes with disadvantages too. It's very difficult for the people to come to a consensus. The best scenario for the U.S. is that it has a very clear external enemy. If there are 2 enemies, the United States will lose its focus. This was the situation before World War II. There were 2 enemies, one Nazi Germany and the other the Red Scare, the Soviet Union. Because of that, the U.S. started fighting internally, even before the war began. Now, if there were 3 external enemies for the U.S., you could see how that would be a mess, let alone 4. So China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group. Russia is like one, but it's not enough.
Yeah, so in that there, and I recommend checking out the whole video. It's about 10 minutes long. Joshua Phillips did an excellent report on this, breaking down the whole situation. And sure enough, this happened. This wasn't a recent comment that was made. This was made earlier. And now we start seeing these things pop up. And we start seeing that communist groups, or not communist groups, Muslim groups around the world are calling for terrorist attacks to happen tomorrow, this Friday. During an interview with Timcast News, Phillips said that he believes that the CCP was involved in the Hamas attack as part of a wider effort to draw the U.S. into another war. He said, quote, "I think the CCP was one of the main forces. Iran definitely, and probably North Korea as well. But why would they do it? The agenda, end quote. Iran has denied involvement in the attack, though intelligence experts suggest Iran is lying, noting that it's the world's top state sponsor of terrorism, which it executes through proxies to maintain plausible deniability. Other reports show that North Korea has been an inventory of weapons that Hamas fired on Israelis, a claim verified by unnamed explosive ordnance disposal specialists who spoke with Timcast News. Now, Phillips said, if Hamas wanted to overthrow Israel, they wouldn't do it like this. You don't grab a bunch of hostages and run back to your house if you don't want to have a hostage situation. They wanted to lure Israel into this. The question is, why did they want to lure them into it? I think it's because they're trying to spark a global terror threat. Again, I think they want all proxy forces of Hamas, of Hezbollah, and all the far left groups tied into the global terror movement to see the imagery of this. And they're going to link it with Israel and possibly the United States, even Europe. And they're going to start launching terrorist attacks again. This is very concerning, as I would say. Now, Phillips explained that it all plays into the CCP's four wars agenda because China needs the U.S. so committed to multiple global military interventions that it'd be unable to intervene when China moves to retake Taiwan. He says, quote, if they invade Taiwan, they can't take the brunt of the U.S. reaction. They need America focused on Russia. They need American focused on terror threats. They need America focused on the drug cartels or something in Latin America, end quote. 3 days after the attack, Hamas called for a global jihad, telling Muslims around the world to target Jewish people and their supporters on Friday, October 13th. Now, Jewish people and their supporters would mean also the United States. Khalid Mashal, the leader and founding member of Hamas, gave a speech asking Muslims around the world to do the following. 1, to show anger, especially next Friday, that would be tomorrow, in Muslim countries and also among Muslim diaspora around the world. He called it, quote, the Friday of Al-Aqsa flood. He said this will send a message of a rage to Zionists and to America. Very interesting. He asked for financial help from all Muslims around the world to help with their money. He called it, quote, financial jihad. He asked Muslims to give the fighters of Gaza in order to compensate them for the destruction. He asked political pressure from Muslim leaders and Muslim nations to stop Israel's military invasion of Gaza. The most important thing, he asked all Muslims around the world to carry jihad by their souls, to fight and be martyrs for Al-Aqsa. He wants Muslims to fight against the Jews, starting with Muslims who live in the countries around Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, but also other countries, and to go to the borders and try to enter, each by his own means. He said this is a time for jihad and have it be applied on the ground rather than just in theory. He asked them to go into caravans and to spill their blood on the land of Palestine. He said their final words were, the funds are important, but today we are asking for your blood and souls to be sacrificed for Palestine. So, this is very concerning, especially considering that Laura Loomer and several others before this came out was reporting that in the next 14 months, they had heard that terrorist cells in America were planning to attack major cities. This is very concerning. Will there be attacks today and tomorrow or this weekend? I have no idea. Should we live in fear? We definitely shouldn't live in fear, but we should definitely be prepared. We should definitely be vigilant. We should definitely have situational awareness and common sense. So let's not bury our heads in the sand. Let's not also live in fear, but let's also be prepared. All these things can be the same thing. We can all have these positions at the same time. The next thing we should notice is that we have to close our borders. We must do it because there have been many reports that Hamas groups have been infiltrating the U.S. via our southern border. In fact, many terrorist cells have been discovered throughout South America, including, I believe it was Peru. Now, another aspect of this is that the U.S. government has reported that we have arrested many people on the terrorist watch list through the southern border, which tells me that there are more terrorists trying to come through our border. And the question for me is, if we've had a rise and arrest the people in the terrorist watch group, does that mean we're doing better at arresting our terrorists? Or does it mean that more terrorists are trying to come through the border and therefore we're catching more of them? So how many are we not catching? That's the question. So we must shut down our southern border. This is a issue of national security, not simply because of the issues that we've been talking about with the southern border, but also because of the threat of terrorist attacks. Now, what's even more concerning is this story from the Epoch Times. A former U.S. soldier has been arrested for trying to give China access to military computer systems. A former U.S. soldier has been arrested in trying to give information to China's ruling communist regime, the State Department has said. Joseph Schmidt served in the U.S. Army, and he attained the rank of sergeant, but was not enlisted at the time of his arrest on October 6th. He is scheduled to appear in front of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California on Friday, and we brought to the Western District of Washington for further court proceedings. It is said, quote, by the Assistant Attorney General, individuals entrusted with national defense information have a continuing duty to protect the information beyond their government service and certainly beyond our borders. I'm thinking, well, duh, we should not be committing treason against our country. I mean, that's simply the case. Now, the question is, what was actually done, right? Was he stopped, or was he able to give information out? The other question is, how many people do you think, how many soldiers are compromised? I'm thinking of the U.S. We have people who are furries. We have people who dress with leather masks of dogs and are as generals. We have transgender individuals as generals. We have people in the highest forms of government who are trans, who have mental illness, who have all sorts of strange proclivities in the bedroom, we'll say. Do you think China is paying these people off? Do you think China has something over these people? Do you think China has some blackmail on these people? Do you think that we have military readiness right now? Do you think our generals are ready to defend our country? I don't think so. I really do not think so. You look at our military right now, and it kind of scares me a little. It kind of scares me a little because what do we focus on? We focus on abortion rights for female soldiers. We focus on transgender rights in the military. All these things are absolute absurdities. So this one person is just somebody we caught. I can't imagine he's the only one. And the problem is, money is only one aspect of it. How many people are being blackmailed because of their deviant habits, we'll say, for their disordered passions, we'll say? How many are being blackmailed? And how many will reveal American secrets to keep those blackmail information secret? Very, very concerning. We have to be prepared for the coming of whatever's going to happen. We'll be right back.